quality corporate training meets powerful AI. Docebo is the world's first generative AI learning platform. You can customize the learning experience and create content in seconds. Learn more at docebo.com.
A bug is terrorizing the Alps and the surrounding forest. It's a tiny little creature, and it eats wood. Scientific name, Ips typographus, better known as the spruce bark beetle, called this way because it loves to devour spruce bark trees. These beetles usually attack weakened or dead trees. They'll burrow their way into the tree trunk, but if there are enough of them, they'll attack living trees as well. In these cases, the tunnels that they dig will block the lymph from flowing, which spells doom for the tree. In 2018, a terrible hurricane swept across the Italian mountains, knocking down many trees in the Italian regions of Veneto, Alto Adige, Trentino, and Friuli-Venezia Giulia. This would be the perfect breeding ground for the bark beetles. To be clear, bark beetles weren't new to the Alps. In nature, it's helpful to eliminate weak plants in favor of younger and stronger ones. And the plants themselves had their own defense mechanism, which was to drown the insects in resin. But things are different now. I am Guido Brera, and you're listening to Black Box, The Hidden Side of Finance, a podcast by Cora Media, sponsored by Docebo. Imagine living in a wood cabin, somewhere in the mountains of Veneto, Alto Adige, Trentino, or Friuli-Venezia Giulia. Yes, a charming wood cabin, but this isn't a fairy tale. Imagine that it's dark and the end of October. The days are getting shorter, and winter is on its way. Imagine that you grew up in this cabin, and you wouldn't live anywhere else, no matter that it's secluded and you have to make a trek to reach the nearest town. Or perhaps you moved here to get away from the city. In any case, you feel right at home, and you're used to hearing the wind howling in fall. But that night of late October in 2018, the howling of the wind is different. There's a sort of electric tension in the woods, in the towns, and all across the countryside. Imagine just walking out on your balcony to close the shutters and smelling the danger in the air. The trees are swaying violently. You shut everything and go back inside. Then you start to hear the whistling. It's the wind, and it's terrifying. You can hear the trees crashing down around you. The cabin is shaking as the forest collapses around it. It doesn't last just a few minutes, or even an hour. It goes on the whole night. You've never seen a storm like this one. It's dark and terrifying. You can't even start to explain it. You don't get a wink of sleep all night. In the morning, you're dazed. The wind has stopped, and so has the sound of plants being ripped from their roots. But there's an eerie light coming from outside. You open up the windows slowly, anticipating what you'll find, and you walk out onto the balcony. You can't believe your eyes, but that's what you see. The forest that separated you from the nearest town is no more. Hundreds of trees, their branches, their leaves, their trunks, all lying on the ground like corpses. You might think you've witnessed a dramatic natural event, like those from long ago, but you'd be wrong. This is something completely new, and it was written by modern man and his own behavior. This is not a fable, even if it does have to do with animals and woods. That storm has a name now. They call it Vaya, and it was a traumatic event. Not just a storm, but a hurricane, because the winds reached 12 degrees on the Beaufort scale. Vaya ravaged the Alps between the 26th and 29th of October 2018. The rain and winds, which reached 125 miles per hour, destroyed thousands of hectares of forest. Removing all those trees in a short time was practically impossible, and these were the ideal conditions for the bark beetles to thrive. It's important to realize that Vaya wasn't just the reason for this devastation, but also an effect of it, because it had been caused by a different type of devastation. We know that nature is wise. Although we humans tend to forget, as we're blinded by our own feelings of power. Nature teaches us to learn from the slow and patient progress of evolution, which adapts and adjusts according to its needs. This is how it preserves and protects. But changes happen, and they can upend everything. A sudden outside event can throw nature a curveball, changing the initial conditions and causing what we call an evolutionary trap. This is what has happened to the woods in the Alps lately. The trap has been set off, nature has fallen prey, and now the bark beetle has become a scourge. The Vaya hurricane was a symptom of change, and the effects of the fallen trees have flipped the balance of the ecosystem in the Alps. Now, the bark beetle is no longer endemic, but an epidemic. The beetle population has grown so much that it's even attacking the healthy trees, who can't defend themselves for other reasons linked to climate change as well. As we said before, the trees used to use resin to protect themselves against the bark beetles. But they need water to produce resin, and climate change is causing droughts as well. Weeks and weeks without rain. The droughts are weakening the plants, and now they can't produce enough resin. And without any defenses, they're at the mercy of the bugs. It used to require 1,000 beetles to take over a spruce bark tree. Now you just need about 200. 1 year after the Vaya disaster, in 2019, another historic event took place, a heavy blizzard in mid-November, when nature was ill-equipped to face it. The mountains were soon white with snow, and the higher you went, the heavier the snow became. But at that point of the year, the ground of the forest wasn't strong enough, so many trees buckled under the weight. Climate change is causing many drastic events, such as droughts and extreme weather, but also greater heat. This is a terrible combination for humans, but ideal for bark beetles, who reproduce after the winter and require temperatures higher than 61 degrees Fahrenheit. This means that as the planet gets warmer, the parasite becomes more widespread as well, both in terms of time, across the course of the year, and in terms of space, at greater mountain heights. What does it mean to lose the woods? What does it mean to lose even one spruce bark tree? These trees can drain hundreds of liters of water from the ground and protect from landslides, floods, and other catastrophes. It seems that the bark beetles are causing even more damage than the Vaya hurricane itself. The Alps are now strewn with dark, dry, and dead trees. But it would be wrong to blame the bark beetles themselves, as this is just a result of climate change caused by us. After all, bark beetles are burrowing themselves into the wounds that we ourselves have created. The insect is so prevalent now in the woods, because we've broken a sacred balance. It's time to rewrite the relationship between humans and the environment. Black Box is a Cora News podcast, produced by Cora Media and sponsored by Docebo. Written by Guido Brera with I Diavoli. Editorial supervision by Francesca Milano. Intro and sound design by Luca Micheli. Editing and post-production by Luca Micheli and Emanuele Muscatelli. Production organization by Alex Federengo.